Hello Internet, and welcome to episode 1 of SkillCheck. SkillCheck is a DM advice and tips web series. It'll be semi-regular, I guess, just whenever I get around to it, sharing various things I feel like talking about, probably brought up by our weekly sessions that I have with my group. Today we will be talking about planning. New DMs seem to have a problem, from what I've read on the internet, on forums and Reddit and so forth. They seem to have a problem with planning, how much to plan, what kind of things to plan, ideas to make the story or session broken up by not just, just combat, straight combat, because combat is fun, but combat can also get really, really boring. Scaling monsters to the player or the group and things like that will be in another topic sometime in the near future, I imagine. Excuse me there. So, planning. I'll tell you what I do for planning. When I get ready for my weekly session, we have it on Wednesdays. It's a weird day in the middle of the week, but it's, the only time we can all get together. I run an online session, in case you guys are wondering. We play over Skype, and we use, believe it or not, Minecraft as our tabletop, since Minecraft is grid-based already, and it also allows me to literally create the environment that the players get to explore. More on that as well later. But planning. For new DMs, first of all, I'd pick up, don't do what I did. I started homebrew right away, made up my own stories, made up everything myself. It is much, much more difficult than just reading a published campaign. So I would pick up something like that, but if you are going with homebrew, here's some things to do. First of all, you know how long your group plays for. If you play for, 2 hours, then you don't really have too much to plan for. But if you play for 4 or 5 hours like my group does, I have a little bit more to plan for. And my group is, a couple of the players are very experienced and very smart, so we tend to go through a lot of the planning, or a lot of the planned session quickly, unless we get off topic, and that just hilarity ensues, and it is amazing. But for new DMs, make sure you plan enough combat encounters to keep the group busy, something to earn experience, but don't forget things like dialogue. When I go to plan something, all the NPCs that they interact with, I try to write a little, like a script, just so that I know what to say, mainly because I'm terrible at trying to come up with a conversation that fits in character just off the top of my head. My PCs are much better at that than I am. But yeah, plan out things like dialogue. Dialogue can be interesting. It can give you a chance to give hints towards your players to sort of nudge them in the right direction to where you want them to go. But always plan to have your PCs do something that was not planned. More often than not, my group will just bugger off and do ridiculous things that I had never, even if I give them something, a big challenge that they simply cannot win, they somehow find a way around it and do it anyways. Last session we had, just the other day, there was a big encampment of enemies. I'm not going to go into the whole plot of our story, but there was an inn that had been looted and occupied by drow and their big spider companions, and the party, level 3 each at this point, with nothing but a sword. They don't even have armor right now. They were just in their clothes. They went and tried to see how many people were in there. So the cleric, who is an alcoholic, splashed some of his alcohol which he decided would be 100 proof moonshine. He splashed it on some wood and set a fire outside to make the drow come out, just to see how many were there. And they were overwhelmed by so many enemies. So they made a break for it and waited until everyone left. And then they came back when there was only a few people left in the inn at night, just guarding. Sorry. And went in, and he wanted to use his rope as a lasso. And all of us were like, this is not going to work. First of all, he was drunk, so he was taking penalties. And secondly, I mean, that's not even something that would be smart to do in real life or in fantasy life. But I gave him a set of skill checks to do with improbable DCs, and he somehow made them all. So, with one of the drow tied up, they swiftly dispatched the rest of them and started to interrogate the lassoed man. After they were done, instead of killing him or setting him free or doing whatever, the barbarian picked him up on the chair that he was in and put him in a giant bag and then carried him. They were carrying around a person in his bag while he was screaming and he called him for help. Now, none of that was planned, and all of this took about 2.5 hours. So most of our session was over, and we hadn't even started on what was planned. So things like that, make sure, you don't want to say no to your PCs, because even if you, stuff like that is just really, really fun and funny to watch, because you get front row seats as DM to all of the hilarity. So just, kind of let them do their own thing, but make sure in the end you do kind of nudge them towards their goal. They had forgotten everything. They had no clue what they were supposed to be doing up by this point. They were just laughing, and it was awesome. And in a campaign, this homebrew campaign I have, it's kind of post-apocalyptic, so it's gritty. The last few sessions we've had were really dark and gritty with a little bit of funny here and there, but this entire session was just pure comedy. And you have to remember to plan things like that. If you have, gritty things, or if yours is all comedy or whatnot, try to break the pace by putting something, polar opposite. So we had gritty seriousness, and just I didn't even plan for the hilarity. I planned for a little bit. I had the NPC they were looking for was a gay fashion designer elf, and I won't get into that right now, why he was even in this post-apocalyptic setting, but that's the only humor I had planned for that. I wanted, little bits of humor here and there, but they took it to a whole new level, and it's one of the reasons I play D&D, because you never know what's going to happen. But yeah, new DMs. If to recap the whole point of this episode, make sure you plan for how long your session is. Plan for that amount of time. Make sure you have options in case your players decide to do something else that is not off the beaten path. I have little booklets of, quest sheets and stuff where I can just, the party runs into this and they don't really know what they're doing. I can just pull out a quest sheet and be like, hey, in the forest you ran into these two brothers who are looking for their sister, who, they were all separated when the drow attacked the overworld. So, just things like that. Make sure you have stuff when they don't know what they're doing, then you have something there to just kind of throw their way. And don't say no to your PCs. Never say no. You do have to say no every once in a while. This way, your session, something towards the storyline happens during your session. You don't want to have, a whole bunch of wasted hours and nobody is anywhere close to what they're supposed to do. Although sometimes that is fun, but I like to have at least a little bit of story progression in my sessions. And make sure you plan for dialogue. RP is a big thing in D&D. I reward my players with RP every time they talk in character every time they do stuff in character. I make sure I write it down, make a note of it, and reward them accordingly to the end. If some people don't RP enough, they don't get as much bonus experience. That kind of pushes the whole group to do a little bit of RP. Even the people who are kind of uncomfortable doing RP, like our cleric for instance, in the beginning, he's a new player by the way, he, out of the group of 3, he's the only really new player. He didn't really like the RP aspect, but a few sessions in, as he saw other people were getting more experience than him, he started doing a little bit more and more RP, and now it just comes naturally to him, and he is the raging alcoholic cleric who gets completely smashed before every fight, and it is a hoot. Yeah, so I hope you found this informative. I guess next time we'll talk about something else. Probably talk about monster scaling, because that was something I really had a problem with in the beginning, was how to make sure monsters were an appropriate challenge for your PCs. By the way, I play in 3.5, but these kinds of DM tips, they work for any edition. So, I will see you next time. Take it easy.